Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you could click below the subscribe button for me, and also click the share button and text this to some of your buddies or share it on social media platforms, I would appreciate it. Trying to grow this channel and also bring you more content like this. So if you want to see more stuff like this, subscribe to me. The reason I'm sharing this video today is a couple bucks behind me. I killed both of these on public land, and it happened in 2017. It was Black Friday. But before I get into sharing the story of these two bucks, I've got a couple more bucks over here. This is a public land buck, and so is this buck here. And the reason I'm sharing you this deer, if it wasn't for this buck, I don't believe I would have killed those two bucks. This story, I'll try to drop a picture in. Anyway, this story was about probably somewhere around 2016 or so, somewhere around there. You know, I was probably 15, 16. Yeah, I was probably 16 years old or so. And I was hunting on public land. There was a bunch of us way back in there. I was about 1.25 miles deep. And I was, you know, on a ridge. There's a bunch of oak trees around. I was looking around, and we hunt with VHF radios in Florida. So I had my radio on, and some buddies were down through the swamp, and I heard one of them come on the radio, "Hey, there's 3 bucks heading north." So, you know, I knew about where my buddies were at in there. So I looked down at my compass and see it, and I'm like, man, those deer got to be coming right my way. And I heard, you know, I heard some deer running, and I had a slug gun with me, and I looked, and the first buck I see is this buck right here. There was an 8-point, and then there was 2 other rack bucks with them. Anyway, I threw up my gun, and they're running at about 80 yards. If I could go back, you know, I would have tried to meh or hollered or stopped them or whatever. But, you know, that's part of the learning process. So anyway, this deer is running. I've got my gun right on him, and, you know, I've got my crosshairs, and as soon as he hits where my front shoulder is, or the deer's front shoulder, I squeeze the trigger. Boom! But I think I flinched or jerked the trigger, and I think I shot below that one. So I pump another one in there, and then, you know, I see the next deer running, and I knew I'd shot under this one, so I raise up and boom! And I think I flinched again. I shot over the next one, and they run out there probably 100 yards or so. They stop, and I turn and click, I ejected my 3rd good shell out, because that slug gun would only hold 3 shells. They turned and started running kind of north again, and you know, I said, "Hey, 3 bucks heading north." So I start walking over there. About the time I got to where they're at, I'm looking for blood or hair or any sign, and I missed both shots. And, you know, it probably wasn't about a minute and a half later, I hear boom, boom, boom. And my dad came on the radio. He was, you know, a good probably over 1/4 mile, probably more like a 1/2 mile from me. And he had shot this buck, and all 3 bucks come running by him. And something I learned from him, and then I'll also go back and tell you what I learned for myself. But when he shot, he was shooting a 30-30, and it had a scope on it, and he couldn't find the deer in the scope because it was so close, and he ended up, I guess, shooting under with the iron sights, and ended up shooting, and then dropped this one, I think, and shot the other one, and ended up, we could never find the other one. We found hair, but there wasn't a good blood trail. But he did end up killing this one. And the thing with me is, what I learned from that experience with me shooting at 2 different bucks, you know, that first buck came through and I shot and missed, and I got all flustered, and then tried to shoot the second one. I was like shocked that I didn't drop that deer in his tracks. And from that point on, I learned that if a deer comes in, don't try to shoot multiple deer, or don't shoot one and then try to shoot another one. Like, we had 2 bucks a day was our limit, so I could shoot both of them. But learning that is, I would have shot at him, and then I would have stayed on him and kept shooting at this buck until I was out of shells, or couldn't shoot anymore. That brings me over to, that's a public land deer I killed with a bow, but these two here I killed running together, and a pretty cool experience. We went out as Black Friday, and we had some engine problems with my boat, or my dad's boat. We're at the landing trying to get it started up. It would start and then it'd die, start and die. So we ended up, my dad said, man, I got to go back to the house and work on this boat. About that time, a buddy pulled up, said, hey, you want to hop in and ride with me? And I said, yeah, sure, let's go. So we start riding down the river, and as we're riding, he says, where do you want to go? Where do you want me to drop you off? And there was 3 different sloughs, and he said, you know, he told me the location where he was going. And I said, well, you think that's a good spot? And he said, yeah. I said, all right, well, I'll just get out with you, because I didn't want to be a burden or him have to look for me or pick me up. And so we turned the dogs loose, because you could run dogs in Florida. So we turn a pack of dogs loose, and my buddy goes in there and he says, all right, well, I'm going to kind of go to the right a little bit. And I said, all right, well, I'll kind of go in there and go kind of straight, maybe a little bit to the left. And so we got back in there. You know, I had sat on a log, and, you know, didn't really see much. I went in there a little bit deeper and sat on another log, didn't really see much. And we were in there probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, and finally my dad texted me and said, where are y'all at? So I told him, and he said, well, I'll just come in and I'll go up on the north end. And there was a slough right there he was going to go, but there's another slough below him, and then the lower slough that we were in. He said, I'll just go up there. It's probably only about a mile through the woods to get up there. And I said, sweet. So a while later, my buddy called me on my phone, and he said, hey, you know, I'm getting ready to head out to the boat. Why don't you start heading that way? I said, well, my dad's in there. You know, he's not that far, maybe a mile up the river. And I know where he's at. And I said, I'll just stay in here and hunt and kind of work my way toward him. And, you know, I'll just catch a ride with him. He said, you sure? I said, yeah, man. Anyway, I sat there for maybe 20, 30 minutes. And I was like, well, it's a mile through the woods. I'll kind of work my way to him. You know, just take my time. It's going to take me a good while. I figured it'd take me a little over an hour just because I was going to be going real slow looking. So I start going and get to that slough that was in between us. And, you know, I found a spot where I could cross. You know, there was a little place dried up. So I went down, came up the other side, and got on this real pretty ridge. There was oak trees and acorns everywhere. I'm looking and my phone rings again. So I pick my phone up. I'm talking to my buddy. He's like, hey man, where you at? What are y'all doing? So I said, well, I've worked my way kind of toward my dad. I said, I know where he's at. You know, he's not maybe, you know, a couple 100 yards from me where I'm figuring. He said, okay. And, you know, I'm on the phone talking, and I look up and I'm like, oh man, here comes a deer. I said, hey, I'll call you right back. Here comes some deer. So I look, and the first deer that comes running, I had 2 guns with me. So I had a rifle on my back, and then I had it was a 270, and then I had a 12 gauge shotgun in my hand with buckshot. So I, you know, take that gun and set it down, and then I grab the sling, grab that rifle off my back, I aim and look, and the first deer is a doe. So I'm like, okay, man, just a bunch of does. The next deer is a really big bodied deer. So I throw up my gun and I look and I see this buck right here, and I can see this side. So I see that long G2, G3, and I mean, I can tell he's got 4 on one side. And for Florida, I'm like, man, that's a good deer. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna shoot him. So years ago, like had happened with that buck, I would have just started shooting and going crazy, but the buck is running toward me. So I just sit here and wait. I'm like, I'm gonna let him get as close as I can, and then, you know, focus, make a good shot. So I'm aiming, and he's kind of coming, and boom, and he kind of keeps running. I bolt another one. He stops. As soon as he stopped, I aimed my gun. Boom! He bucked up, and I seen hair go everywhere, so I knew it got him. And I turn and look, and I see another buck. This buck here, I see 2 more deer coming. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But this buck, the one I just shot, he turns and starts running. So I know I already hit him, but I knew I was gonna have to blood track him. I didn't want to lose him, and from the experience I had with the other buck before, I was like, I'm gonna shoot until that buck is down before I try to even shoot at anything else. So I get on him again. He's running. He stops. Boom! He drops in his tracks. I bolt another one, and I look at this buck here, and he starts to try to get up. So I bolt another one. Boom! So I've shot 4 times, and so I bolt another one, and this buck starts running, and another buck is with him. So I see 3 bucks at least. But this one, I seen a big fork on him, and he looked like a decent deer. I was like, well, I'm going to shoot him. So I turn and get my rifle on him, and he starts running and stops and starts looking at me and throwing his head up and down, up and down. So I take my 270, and boom! I see hair go everywhere, and he jumps up and starts running. So that's 5 shots with my rifle. So I'm out of bullets. I've got more with me, but I didn't want to reload, so I just lay that gun down and grab my shotgun. He starts running toward me, and he's got probably 45 yards or so. He's running. I lead him, and as soon as I see the nose of him get to where the bead is on my shotgun, boom! He dropped. I hit him right behind the shoulder, right where you want to. He dropped, and my phone about that time, starts going crazy. People just start going on the radio. Who's shooting? Who's shooting? What's going on? And I start walking, and all of a sudden, this full point tries to get up again. So I got that shotgun, and boom, shoot him. So I shot 5 times with a rifle and twice with a shotgun. So I shot 7 times, and I ended up hitting at least 4 or 5 because I hit this buck, the 7 or 8 point. I hit him at least, I think I hit him twice with a rifle, and then I shot him once with a rifle, and I shot him twice with a shotgun. So that's 5 hits, and I think I missed twice with a rifle while they were running or whatever. But anyway, my phone goes off, and my buddy called me who I was just on the phone with. He's like, did you get him? I said, no sir, I got 2. He's like, what? And he said, man, I'm just right in here close to you on the boat. He said, you want me to grab the boat and head in toward you? I said, yeah, I think I'm going to need some help. And I got on the radio and told my dad, I said, hey, get ready, keep your eyes open. There's another buck heading north, heading toward you. Get ready. And he kept his eyes open, never seen anything. And I knew in that area, some of my buddies had been in there, and they'd seen several bucks. Not too long before, maybe a week or 2 weeks before, they'd seen like 7 bucks running together. And they said the last 1 or 2 were like really big bucks. But, public land in Florida, seeing a buck like this, a lot of people from up north might laugh or think it's little, but, that's a pretty decent Florida deer. And I definitely wasn't going to pass him up. And I seen this big forked horn, because the unit that I was hunting, you could kill 2 bucks a day. That was before you had to tag anything. And also, as long as you had a forked horn on one side, you were good. It was a legal deer. So anyway, that's my 2 bucks that I killed running together. But I know for a fact it was just through maturity, through hunting experience, and mishaps of me telling you earlier, this buck right here, how I had missed him and my dad killed him. I learned a lot from that lesson. And I believe and I know for a fact, if it wouldn't have been for me shooting and missing that deer and just going crazy, you got to keep yourself calm and collected, and just really focus on one shot at a time, putting it right where you need to, and then don't try to get onto another deer. Just keep shooting. And I don't care if you're shooting a rifle or a bow. I love bow hunting. That's what I prefer to do. But if that deer is still alive and trying to get up or go, like, shoot him till he's done, because deer are very, very tough animals. But anyway, I've got some more stories that I can tell later on. But if you would like and subscribe,